The night sky was burning. A human ship had fallen from the stars, and the fire of its crash painted the dark forest in red and orange. Captain Daniel pushed himself out from broken metal, his head ringing, his body weak, but his heart still beating. The air was heavy with glowing mist, every breath sharp like knives. He knew he was the only one alive, or at least he hoped so. He walked step by step through trees that rose like giants, their trunks wide, their leaves shining with strange blue light. Something moved in the shadows, and he froze. His hand gripped the broken tool from the ship, the only weapon he had. But the sound was not one thing, it was many. Whispers, growls, and the crack of branches. Daniel's heart beat louder than his footsteps. Then he saw her. At first, he thought it was another monster, tall as two humans, her body broad, her skin marked with faint silver lines that glowed under the moonlight. Her eyes were gold, watching him with both caution and sorrow. She carried a long spear, sharp and dark like stone. Daniel lifted his tool, ready to fight, but his arm trembled. The creature, no, the woman, spoke. Her voice was deep, soft, but heavy with sadness. "You should not be here, human," she said. Daniel froze again, shocked she knew his kind. You speak English?" he whispered. "I speak many tongues," she answered, "but no one listens to me." Before Daniel could ask, a roar shook the forest. From behind the glowing mist, a beast appeared, huge, with 4 arms and teeth like swords. It ran toward him, the ground shaking under its weight. Daniel raised his tool, but his hands were weak. The beast leapt, and he thought his life was over. The tall woman moved faster than his eyes. Her spear cut through the air, striking the beast's chest. It screamed, twisted, then fell heavy to the ground, shaking the earth. Daniel stared at her, breathing hard, his fear now mixed with shock and awe. She looked at him, but not with pride. Her shoulders were bent, her eyes heavy with shame. "My body is too big," she said slowly. "My people call me useless, not breeding material." Daniel did not know what to answer. She had just saved him, and yet she spoke like she was broken inside. He followed her as she walked deeper into the forest. He had no choice, for the night was full of monsters, and she was the only shield between him and death. The forest opened into a wide valley, the ground covered with ruins of stone. Tall pillars broken and fallen. She stopped there, touching one of the stones with her hand. "This was once a place of my people," she said, "but now only silence remains." Daniel watched her, the firelight of the crash behind them fading into smoke. He tried to speak, but words failed him. She was not just tall, she was powerful, graceful, and yet she carried pain like a chain. "Why save me?" he asked finally. She turned her golden eyes to him, and for the first time he saw a faint spark. "Because you looked at me with fear," she said, "not disgust." A strange silence fell, broken only by distant cries of night beasts. Daniel felt the weight of the planet pressing down on him. He was a stranger here, weak and lost, but in her presence, he felt a strange kind of safety. She looked down at him, her voice shaking. "My name is Lyra," she said, "and this world does not want me." Daniel took a step closer, though his legs trembled. "My name is Daniel," he said, "and I think this world does not want me either." The mist swirled around them like a living thing. Above, the stars shone cold and far away, and in that broken place among ruins and monsters, the first fragile thread between human and alien was tied, but danger was not finished. In the distance, more roars rose from the dark, closer this time. Lyra lifted her spear again, her eyes scanning the valley. She turned to Daniel, her face sharp with warning. "Stay near me, human," she said, "for the night has many teeth." Daniel obeyed, his heart heavy with fear, but also filled with strange wonder. He did not know if he would see the sunrise, but he knew this. His fate was now tied to the outcast alien woman, and whatever secrets this world held, they would face them together. The forest was never quiet. Every hour of night brought new sounds, low growls, wings beating, strange cries from the mist. Daniel stayed close to Lyra, walking in her shadow, watching how her tall body moved with power and caution. She walked like someone always hunted, her spear ready, her golden eyes sharp. Daniel felt small beside her, yet he could not look away. They stopped near a broken cave, its entrance wide like a mouth, its walls glowing faint blue. Lyra searched the ground before stepping in, her steps careful. Daniel followed, breathing hard, his chest heavy with smoke from the crash. Inside, the air was cooler, filled with dripping water and soft light. Lyra lit a fire with quick skill, sparks rising like stars. Daniel sat on a stone, his hands shaking. "Thank you," he said, his voice weak. "You saved me again." Lyra did not look at him, her eyes fixed on the fire. "My people would not thank me," she said. "They would laugh." "Why?" Daniel asked. "Because my size is wrong. My body too large. My hips too wide. My shoulders too strong, she whispered. They call me useless. Not a mother. Not a mate. Daniel stared, confused. You killed that monster like it was nothing, he said. How can strength be useless? Her golden eyes lifted, filled with quiet pain. In my tribe, a woman's worth is only if she can breed, if she can make children, she said. I was tested, I failed, so they gave me no place, no family. Her words hung heavy, the firelight dancing on her face. Daniel felt anger burn inside him, but he said nothing, only clenched his fists. The night passed slow. Outside, shadows moved in their own mist, but none dared come near the cave fire. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment, and when he opened them, Lyra was sitting close, still awake, still guarding. She had not slept, not even blinked long. Why do you guard me? He asked softly. Because you are alone, she said, and I know the pain of being alone. Morning came with red skies. They left the cave and walked deeper into the valley, where broken ruins rose like old bones, tall stone towers, half fallen, half swallowed by trees. Daniel touched the walls, surprised to see carvings, strange shapes, circles, and what looked like human writing. This is impossible, he whispered. Humans. We have been here before. Lyra tilted her head. Your kind is not the first to come, but none stayed. As they searched, a strange sound came through the air, a pulse like a hidden beacon. Daniel froze, his eyes wide. It could be my crew, he said, hope rising in his chest. Or it could be hunters, Lyra answered, her voice flat. Hunters? He asked. They search for outcasts like me and prey like you, she said. They moved carefully, hiding between ruins. At one point, Daniel slipped on broken stone, his leg cut by sharp edge, blood dripping. He hissed in pain, but before he could move, Lyra knelt beside him. Her big hands touched his wound with surprising gentleness. Hold still, she said, tearing a strip of her own cloth, wrapping it tight around his leg. Daniel's breath caught, not from pain but from the closeness. Her golden eyes met his, and for a moment, the world fell silent. You did not need to help me, he whispered. You are weak now, she said softly, but I see strength in you. Her voice trembled slightly, almost like fear. Daniel wanted to speak, but footsteps echoed in the distance, voices sharp and cruel. Lyra pulled him behind a wall, pressing him close to her body. Do not breathe loud, she whispered. From the shadows, Daniel saw them, tall figures with armor made of bone and metal, their faces hidden under masks. Each carried strange weapons, humming with power. They searched the ruins, their voices harsh. They are looking for us, Daniel whispered. Lyra nodded, her spear gripped tight, her body tense. Her eyes glowed brighter, not with fear, but with anger. They stayed hidden until the hunters moved away. Daniel's heart pounded, sweat on his face. When it was safe, Lyra finally spoke. They will not stop. They want me gone, and now you too. Daniel swallowed hard, the truth heavy in his chest. He was no longer just a survivor. He was now part of her fight. That night, they found another hiding place among the ruins. Daniel sat close to the fire, watching her in silence. She sat with her spear across her knees, her face hard, yet tired. For a long time, they did not speak. Then Daniel said quietly, You are not useless, Lyra. Her eyes lifted slowly, surprise flickering. No one has ever said that, she whispered. Then let me be the first, he said firmly. The fire cracked, the forest breathed, and something new grew between them. Not just survival, but a bond, fragile yet real. Daniel no longer saw her as a monster, and she no longer looked at him as prey. They were two lost souls, tied together by danger, shame, and something deeper they could not yet name. And as the night closed in, the hunters' cries echoed once more through the dark. Their bond would soon be tested, harder than either could imagine. The ruins stretched farther than Daniel expected. Everywhere he looked, broken pillars stood like the teeth of giants, and walls half buried in roots carried strange marks. The mist swirled around the stones, glowing faint blue, as if the ruins themselves breathed. Daniel ran his fingers across one carving, his heart racing. Some of the symbols were alien. To some were human letters, faded, almost lost. He whispered to himself, This is not the first time humans came here. Lyra stood behind him, her spear in hand, her golden eyes scanning the shadows. Her voice was low like a warning. I told you, human. Others of your kind walked here long ago, but none remained, none survived. Daniel turned, confusion on his face. Then why leave marks like these? Someone wanted us to know. Lyra shook her head, her hair falling across her shoulders. Knowledge brings danger, Daniel. The hunters guard these ruins for a reason. The ground shook lightly, a deep vibration that seemed to come from beneath the stones. Daniel froze, his eyes wide. What was that? Lyra's grip on her spear tightened. The ruins are not dead. They carry power, old power, forbidden to touch. But curiosity burned inside Daniel. He pressed his palm against the stone again, and a faint hum answered his touch. A hidden pulse, like the beat of a heart. Suddenly, a sound cut through the air, sharp and cold. The hunters, their voices echoing closer. Lyra pulled Daniel into the shadow of a fallen tower, pressing him against the stone. "Stay still," she whispered, her breath warm, her eyes fierce. Daniel's chest rose and fell too fast, the nearness of her presence making his blood run hot. But fear was stronger, for around the corner came the hunters, tall and armored, their masks glowing faint red. They searched with long staffs that hummed like thunder. One of them paused, his head turning toward the tower. Daniel held his breath, praying the mist would hide them. The hunter stepped closer, closer still, until his weapons scraped the stone above Daniel's head. Lyra's muscles tensed, ready to strike, but Daniel gently touched her wrist, shaking his head. If she attacked, they would both die. A strange howl echoed through the forest then, deep and angry. The hunters turned their heads and spoke in harsh words Daniel could not understand. Then they left, their heavy steps fading into the mist. Only when silence returned did Daniel finally breathe again. "That was too close," he whispered. Lyra nodded, but her eyes were still on him, studying, measuring. "You should not have stopped me," she said, her voice heavy. "I could have killed them. And then 10 more would come." Daniel answered, his tone steady. "You saved me once, Lyra. Let me save you this time." Her golden eyes softened just for a heartbeat. She looked away quickly, as if afraid of her own feelings. "Strange human," she muttered, though her voice carried no anger. They moved deeper into the ruins until they found a chamber hidden under broken steps. Inside, the walls were covered in glowing lines, forming circles and patterns. In the center stood a black stone table, smooth and cold. Daniel approached it carefully. Something in the air changed, a pressure in his chest, as though the ruins recognized him. Lyra stayed back, her spear raised. "Do not touch it," she warned, but Daniel's hand reached forward anyway. The moment his skin touched the stone, the chamber filled with light. Symbols blazed across the walls, shining bright blue. A voice, mechanical and distant, spoke in broken English. "Project Eden. Failed. Records incomplete. Human subjects lost." Daniel staggered back, shock flooding him. "Project Eden? What is this place?" Lyra's face was pale, her golden eyes wide. "You awakened something that should sleep," she said, her voice trembling. "Maybe this can explain why I'm here, why humans came before me," Daniel argued. But before she could answer, the hunters' horns echoed in the distance, loud and cruel. The light from the walls must have called them. "They are coming," Lyra said, and pulling him toward the exit. "And they will not let us leave alive." They ran through the ruins, their steps echoing against broken stone. The mist grew thicker, shapes moving within it. Daniel's breath burned, his body weaker with each step, but Lyra moved like a storm, her spear ready, her pace strong, never slowing. Daniel stumbled, his wound from before reopening, blood staining his leg. He fell against the stone, gasping. Lyra stopped instantly, turning back. "You cannot run," she said, her voice hard. "Go without me." Daniel coughed. "Save yourself." Her eyes flared, and for the first time she shouted, "No, I will not leave you." She lifted him in her arms as though he weighed nothing, her body big, strong, yet gentle as she held him. Daniel's head rested against her shoulder, his eyes heavy but his heart racing. In the distance, red lights of the hunters cut through the mist. They were closing in, their weapons glowing, but Lyra did not stop. She carried him deeper into the forest, away from the ruins, her voice low, almost a vow. "They will not take you, Daniel, not while I breathe." Behind them, the ruins pulsed again with blue light, and in that light, secrets waited. Truths about humans and aliens, about Project Eden, secrets that could change everything. But for now, the bond between outcast and human was all that stood between survival and death. The forest no longer felt alive, it felt hunted. Every branch carried silence, every shadow carried danger. Daniel lay weak in Lyra's arms, his leg bleeding, his breath shallow. But she carried him without slowing, her golden eyes sharp, her spear ready. They reached a clearing where twisted trees circled like walls. Lyra lowered Daniel against a stone and pressed her palm to his wound. Her touch was firm, steady, yet filled with care. Daniel hissed from the pain. "You should leave me," he whispered. Lyra shook her head, anger flashing in her eyes. "Do not speak such words, human. I will not leave you." Before Daniel could answer, the sound of horns shook the forest. The hunters had found their trail. Red lights cut through the mist, moving fast. Lyra rose, gripping her spear, her tall figure blocking the path between Daniel and the coming threat. Her voice was low, heavy with fire. "They think I am prey, but they will learn." The hunters stepped into the clearing, 4 at first, their masks glowing red, their weapons humming with deadly energy. They spread out, forming a circle, their voices harsh, their words unknown, but Daniel understood the tone. It was the sound of predators before the kill. One hunter lifted his weapon, aiming straight at Lyra. In that instant she moved, her spear flashed like lightning, striking the weapon aside. The fight began. Daniel tried to rise, his weak body shaking, but his eyes locked on Lyra. She fought like a storm, every strike heavy, every move filled with purpose. One hunter fell with a broken chest, another staggered back with his mask shattered, but more poured into the clearing. 5, 6, their red lights glowing in the mist. Lyra's breaths grew heavy, sweat shining on her skin. She could fight, but not forever. Daniel dragged himself toward a broken piece of stone, his fingers closing around sharp edges. It was no weapon, only a fragment, but he would not stay useless. A hunter turned toward him, raising its staff. Daniel swung the stone with all his strength, striking the mask. The hunter stumbled, and in that moment, Lyra's spear pierced through its chest. She looked at Daniel, surprise and pride in her eyes. "You are not weak," she said, her voice fierce, but the hunters were too many, horns called. Again, and more shadows moved through the mist. Lyra grabbed Daniel, pulling him back. "We cannot win here," she said, her breath ragged. "We must run." Daniel's voice was low, desperate. "They will never stop, will they?" Her silence was the answer. They fled into the deeper forest, branches tearing at them, the mist glowing brighter as if alive. Daniel felt every step shake his wound, but Lyra did not let go. She carried him when he stumbled, her strength unbroken. Behind them, the hunters' lights grew closer, their voices echoed, chanting, hunting. The chase had no end. Finally, the forest opened into a wide ravine, its floor filled with broken ruins. At the center, a stone gate stood tall, half-buried, glowing faint blue. Daniel's eyes widened. "It's like the chamber before," he whispered. Lyra frowned, her spear ready. "This place is cursed," she said, "but it may hide us." They entered the ruins, the air heavy with power. Symbols lit up as Daniel passed, responding to his presence. Lyra looked at him sharply. "These stones know you," she said. "Why?" "I don't know," Daniel whispered. "But maybe the answer is here." The hunter's steps drew near, red light spilling into the ravine. Lyra pushed Daniel behind the gate, her body shielding his. Her golden eyes blazed with defiance. "If they take me, run," she ordered. Daniel shook his head. "No, not again. We survived together." The hunters appeared, their numbers doubled, weapons raised, voices loud. Lyra stood tall, her spear glowing faint in the blue light of the ruins. Daniel felt the pulse of the stones again, the same energy that had answered him before. Desperate, he placed his hand on the glowing gate. The ruins answered with a shock of light, blinding. The ground shook, the hunters staggered, their weapons crackling. A wave of energy pushed them back, scattering them like leaves in a storm. When the light faded, silence fell. The hunters regrouped at the edge of the ravine, watching, but not stepping closer. Something in the ruins held them back. Lyra looked at Daniel, her chest rising and falling. "You touched the stones again," she said, her voice a mix of fear and awe. "They react to you, Daniel, as if you belong here." Daniel looked at his hand, still glowing faint blue. "I don't understand," he whispered, "but maybe I was sent here for a reason." Lyra's face tightened, shadows in her eyes. "Reason or curse, the hunters will not stop. They will return in greater force." Daniel nodded, his voice steady. "Then we fight, not just to survive, but to end this." The night wind howled through the ruins, carrying the distant cry of horns. The hunters had not left. They waited, gathering. The threat had grown, larger than before, and as Daniel stood beside Lyra, weak but unbroken, he felt it. The war for survival had only begun. The ruins gave them shelter for only a short while. The hunters did not cross the glowing gate, but their red lights still flickered in the mist, waiting, watching. Daniel leaned against the stone wall, his body weak, his wound burning. Lyra knelt beside him, pressing cloth tighter around his leg, her big hands surprisingly gentle. "You bleed too much," she said, her deep voice low, almost breaking. Daniel tried to smile, but it faded. "You saved me again," he whispered. "I don't know how long I can keep going." Lyra's golden eyes flashed with sudden anger. "Do not speak of giving up," she said. "I will carry you if I must, but I will not watch you die." Daniel looked at her, really looked. at her wide shoulders, her strong arms, her face both fierce and tired. "You don't understand," he said, his voice weak but honest. "I'm not afraid of death. I'm afraid of leaving you alone." Lyra froze, her breath caught, her hand still resting. G on his leg. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not in her tribe, not in her lonely exile. She turned her head away, but her voice trembled. "You are strange, human. I am not beautiful, not wanted, not fit for family." Daniel reached for her hand, his fingers small against hers. "You are more than beautiful to me," he said. "You are strength, you are fire, you are hope." Her eyes widened, golden light shining through the tears she tried to hide. She shook her head, her voice breaking. "My body is too big, too wrong. My people said I could never give life, never bear children. I am empty." Daniel's voice was firm, filled with quiet fire. "Then they were blind because I see you, Lyra. I don't care about their rules. I don't care about their tests. I care about you." The forest outside roared with distant horns, but inside the ruins, a silence hung, heavy, fragile, alive. Lyra's spear rested forgotten against the wall, her body shaking. She wanted to push him away, to keep her heart locked, but his words had broken something open inside her. Daniel lifted her hand to his chest, pressing it against his heart. "Do you feel that?" he whispered. "I am still alive because of you, and I want to stay alive for you." For the first time, Lyra lowered her guard. She leaned closer, her forehead touching his, her golden eyes closing. Her voice was a whisper, trembling like a leaf. "You should not love me, Daniel. It will bring you pain." He smiled, even as blood stained his clothes. "Then let me choose the pain, because loving you is worth it." The fire between them burned strong, but danger did not wait. The hunter's horns grew louder, echoing across the valley. Lyra pulled away, her face hard again, though her eyes still glowed with new warmth. "They are coming," she said, gripping her spear. "They will not stop until we are dead." Daniel struggled to his feet, leaning against the wall, his jaw tight. "Then we fight together," he said, side by side. The hunters entered the ruins, their red lights glowing like blood, their weapons humming with deadly power. Lyra stepped in front of Daniel, her tall body a shield, her voice a growl. "They will not touch you," she said. The battle came fast, blades and light clashing against stone, sparks flying. Lyra fought with all her fury, her spear cutting through armor, her roars shaking the chamber, but the hunters pressed hard, too many, too strong. One slipped past her, rushing toward Daniel. Daniel raised a broken stone, ready to fight, but his wound slowed him. The hunter's blade swung, and Daniel stumbled. Lyra saw it and screamed, her spear flying like lightning, striking the hunter through the chest before it touched him. She grabbed Daniel, pulling him back. "You cannot fight alone," she said, her voice shaking with fear. Daniel met her gaze. "Then don't leave me alone," he said. "Fight with me, always." Her golden eyes burned, and for the first time she nodded. "Yes, always." The fight raged on, the ruins glowing brighter with every strike, as if the stones themselves answered their bond. At last, the surviving hunters pulled back, their horns echoing retreat. The mist swallowed their red lights, but their voices promised they would return. Silence fell again, broken only by Daniel's heavy breathing and Lyra's pounding heart. Daniel sank to the ground, exhausted, his hand gripping hers. "Lyra," he whispered, his eyes heavy. "You said you could never give life, never give family." She looked down at him, her face shadowed, her voice soft. "Yes," she said, "that is my curse." Daniel's hand tightened on hers, his words slow but certain. "Then let me give you a new truth. Family is not only blood, family is choice, and I choose you." Her breath caught, her tall body trembling. In her golden eyes, sorrow and hope fought. She lowered herself beside him, wrapping her strong arms around his fragile body. For the first time in her life, she let herself be held, and for the first time, she believed she was not alone. Outside, the hunters gathered their forces, their horns calling across the night. The threat had not ended, it had only grown, but inside the ruins, in the heart of danger, love had sparked, fragile but unstoppable, and that love would soon change everything. The night was restless. Horns of the hunters echoed through the mist, calling to one another. Daniel and Lyra had no time to rest, no time to heal. They were hunted from every side, and soon the hunters closed the trap. They were captured. Iron chains heavy around Daniel's wrists, glowing ropes binding Lyra's arms. The hunters dragged them through the forest, their red lights cold, their voices sharp. Daniel struggled, but every step cut deeper into his wounded leg. Lyra did not fight, her face hard, her golden eyes watching every shadow. She could not break free now, not with Daniel chained. If she moved too soon, they would kill him first. The hunters threw them into a prison deep beneath the ruins, a chamber carved from black stone, walls alive with strange blue symbols. Other prisoners sat in silence, broken and weak. Outcasts like Lyra, too tall, too small, too different, all judged as unworthy by their own kind. Daniel's heart burned with anger. "Your people did this to their own," he whispered. Lyra nodded, her voice bitter. "Yes, we are the unwanted, the useless, the ones they hide in the dark." The chains glowed whenever Daniel pulled, burning his skin. He fell to his knees, exhausted. Lyra moved closer, even with her arms bound, her voice softened. "You must not give up, Daniel. We will find a way." He looked at her, his eyes heavy with pain. "You've carried me so far, but maybe I've only slowed you down." She leaned down, her face near his, her golden eyes sharp. "Do not say that, human. Without you, I would still be nothing." The prisoners around them watched with quiet eyes. Hope flickered in their faces as they listened. For many, Lyra had always been a shadow, an exile, but now they saw her with the human, and they whispered among themselves. Something had changed, something alive. That night, Daniel and Lyra spoke in low voices. He told her of Earth, of skies blue without mist, of oceans endless and free. She told him of her childhood, how she had been tested, measured, judged, and cast away. Her voice shook, but Daniel held her gaze. "To me, you were never useless," he said. "You saved me. You gave me reason to fight." A strange warmth passed through her chest. She placed her hand over her stomach, a habit she had carried for years, a reminder of what she had been told. Empty, barren, incapable. But tonight, the warmth felt different. Her body felt alive. Her heart raced. She said nothing. Not yet. The next day, the hunters came, dragging them into a larger chamber. At the center stood a machine, half alive, half stone, glowing with the same blue light as the ruins. The leader of the hunters spoke in a cruel voice, his mask glowing. "Human and outcast, you will be broken, your bond erased, your bodies fed to the stone." Daniel's jaw tightened, his fists clenched, but Lyra stepped forward, her chains glowing hot. Her voice was deep, shaking the chamber. "No, we will not break, not while I breathe." The hunters struck her with their staffs, energy burning across her back. She staggered but did not fall, her golden eyes burning with fire. Daniel shouted, fighting his chains, "Stop! Leave her!" The prisoners cried out, their voices echoing. Something stirred in the ruins, the blue light pulsing faster, stronger. Daniel reached out, his hand pressing against the stone floor. The same power answered him again, bright and alive. The chains cracked, sparks flying. The hunters turned in shock. Daniel stood, his body weak but glowing faint blue. "I don't know what you are," he shouted, "but you will not take her from me." Lyra's chains broke in the same light. She roared, grabbing her spear from a fallen guard. The chamber shook as she struck down the hunters. Her strength doubled, her fury unstoppable. The prisoners rose too, emboldened, joining the fight. The hunters fell one by one, their red lights dying. When the last hunter dropped, silence filled the chamber. Daniel leaned against a wall, panting, his body trembling from the strange power. Lyra came to him, her spear still in hand, her golden eyes wide with fear and wonder. "The ruins answer you," she whispered. "Why? What are you?" Daniel shook his head, his voice rough. "I don't know, but it saved us. And it saved you." She knelt beside him, her big hands trembling. Then she froze again, her hand moving to her stomach. Her breath caught, her heart thundered. A new life pulsed inside her, faint but real. She looked at Daniel, her voice breaking. "They told me I could never give life," she whispered, tears shining in her golden eyes. "But Daniel, I feel it. Something is growing inside me." Daniel's eyes widened, his hand reaching for hers. "Are you saying?" "Yes," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I am with child." The prisoners gasped, their whispers filling the chamber. It was impossible, yet here she stood, proof that the bond between human and outcast had broken every law. Daniel's heart surged, joy and fear mixing. He held her hands tight, his voice fierce. "Then we will protect this life, together, no matter what comes." Lyra leaned close, pressing her forehead against his, her voice a vow. "This child will not be born in chains, Daniel. This child will be free." Outside the prison, horns called once more, louder, closer. The hunters had not finished. But now Daniel and Lyra carried more than survival. They carried a miracle, and that miracle would change the galaxy. The horns of the hunters shook the night. The prison walls trembled, dust falling from the ceiling. The survivors looked to Lyra and Daniel, fear and hope fighting in their eyes. They had escaped once, but now the hunters came with greater force, stronger, endless. There would be no hiding, not anymore. Daniel stood, his body still weak, his wounds still burning, but his eyes alive with fire. Lyra stood beside him, her spear glowing faint in the blue light of the ruins. Her hand touched her stomach, where new life now rested. Her voice was deep, filled with power. They call us useless, broken, unworthy, but tonight we will show them who we are. The prisoners rose, lifting broken weapons, stones, even their bare fists. For the first time, they did not look like exiles. They looked like warriors. Daniel moved to the center, placing his hand on the stone floor. Again, the ruins answered, blue light racing across the walls. Symbols flared, alive with ancient power. The hunters outside paused, their horns faltering. The ruins had awakened, the gate shattered open, and the hunters stormed inside. Their red lights filled the chamber, their weapons humming with death. The prisoners roared and charged. The clash shook the ground, steel against stone, cries against horns. Lyra led the front, her spear moving with deadly grace. Each strike fell like thunder, each step unbroken. Daniel fought too. Though his body shook, he used the strange light that answered him. Every time his hand touched stone, waves of blue power struck the hunters back. Together, they were unstoppable. Still, the hunters pressed harder. Their leader stepped forward, taller than the rest, his mask shining with crimson fire. His weapon glowed like burning sun. He pointed at Lyra, his voice harsh. "You are exile. You are nothing. You do not deserve life." Lyra raised her spear, her golden eyes blazing. "Then watch me live," she growled and charged. Their weapons clashed, sparks flying, stone cracking under their feet. The leader struck hard, each blow heavy as mountains. But Lyra did not fall. She fought with strength born of fire, of love, of hope. Daniel saw her struggle, saw her arms bleed, saw her body weaken, and he could not stand back. He pressed both hands to the ruins, shouting with all his soul. The blue light surged like a storm, flooding the chamber. The hunters staggered, their masks cracking, their weapons failing. The leader roared, striking again, but Lyra met him with one final thrust. Her spear pierced through his chest, shattering the crimson mask. The leader fell, the ground shaking, his red light dying. The remaining hunters froze, their horns silent. Without their leader, their courage broke. One by one, they turned and fled into the mist, their red lights vanishing. The chamber filled with silence, broken only by the heavy breaths of the survivors. The battle was won, but Lyra stood trembling, her spear dripping, her chest rising and falling fast. She looked at Daniel, her golden eyes shining with both exhaustion and joy. "We did it," she whispered. Daniel staggered toward her, his legs weak, his heart strong. He placed his hand on her cheek. "No, Lyra, you did it. You saved us all." The prisoners gathered around them, their voices soft with awe. They bowed to her, not as an exile, but as a leader. Lyra's body shook, tears burning in her eyes. For the first time, she was not rejected, not cursed, not alone. She was chosen, respected, loved. Daniel pulled her close, his hand resting on her stomach. "Our child will be born free," he whispered. Her lips trembled, her arms wrapped around him. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking, "free and never called worthless." The ruins pulsed once more, brighter than before. The blue light spread through the valley, into the forest, into the night sky. It was not just light, it was a signal, a call across the stars. The ancient project, long forgotten, now awake again. Daniel and Lyra stood together, their bond the key, their love the spark. Far above, the sky burned with new stars. Ships would come, answers would come, maybe even war, but none of that mattered now, because in the heart of danger, in the ashes of exile, a miracle had begun. Daniel kissed Lyra's forehead, his voice a promise. "No matter what comes, I will never let you be alone again." Lyra closed her eyes, her golden tears falling. "And I will never let them take you or our child." Around them, the prisoners lifted their voices, a song of freedom rising in. To the night, the hunters were gone, the ruins alive, the future uncertain, but for the first time, hope was stronger than fear. And in that hope, in that bond, a new chapter for both human and alien had begun. The outcast was no longer unwanted. The human was no longer alone. Together, they had broken the laws of nature, of power, of despair. Together, they had found love. And in that love, they had found the strength to change a galaxy.